Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Citizen Bear. Today, I want to talk about some topics. I had originally planned to talk about some things like emergency preparedness and other things, but times have changed and things have come up, and I really wanted to step out. And first, I want to explain that, in the course of doing this podcast and doing these shoots, sometimes there's a several-week delay between topics. So, we have to go through editing, and we have several episodes kind of working on and behind the scenes before they actually come up online. So if this seems a little dated or behind the schedule, that's why. I just wanted to make that clear. So let me jump right in here with what I want to kind of get into in a couple of different areas. And I kind of talk about this on a little bit of hypocrisy, but also this is going to go back onto the concept of our Marxist issues in this country. And last week, I talked about, understanding each other and having grace with each other and understanding what other people are going through before we throw rocks, before we, point at people, before we talk about, elitism and all these other things. We understand how difficult times can be for all of us and that things happen in all our lives. And we should really try to understand and have grace and have empathy for each other and shake off some of this finger pointing that's being fueled in our society. And I think there's a lot of strength in that for one another. And I thought it was a very valuable talk, and it was really heartfelt for me. And it was meant to be heartfelt and given to everyone who watches. And it was very difficult for me that day because we recorded that in the morning about empathy, about understanding one another, about reaching out. And that afternoon I went home and Charlie Kirk had been assassinated. And it took my breath away, I have to tell you. And a man I'd never met and only generally followed and understood him, but I appreciated his work. But I was totally shocked, and my breath was taken away. And I think that the ground beneath all our feet shook a little bit as to the horrific nature of the crime. And what was worse was the horrific nature of the follow-up to the crime on the part of many in the far left, where we saw the complete lack of empathy, the complete lack of humanity. And even that took my breath away. But then came behind it the hypocrisy of the leaders who really started talking about their own skins and their own political careers and really did nothing to quell the problem. They just talked out of both sides of their mouth, and I want to walk into that first. I think that it's a terrible thing, to lack that empathy and to lack any sense of humanity when you talk about people. But I think we have to take a step forward, and I want to just cover some topics here, and I want to be strong about it, so I hope people aren't taken back, because this goes well beyond the assassination, and I believe that assassination in many ways, on what I will talk about later as a counter-revolution, was really in many ways the shot that was heard around the world. And it will long stand as an incredible moment in time. And the follow-up to it has been an incredible moment in time. I have heard it said that hypocrisy is the greatest sin of all, for the repentance of a hypocrite is hypocrisy itself. We have seen absolutely no repentance, no humility, no empathy, just constant hypocrisy from those on the left and the political figures who stand in the Democratic Party in complete full bloom. Now they speak, so many come out. Some I haven't heard from in the public spotlight in a long time. They want to calm the rhetoric. We need to tone down the rhetoric. We need to find a better way. We're all just a little guilty here. No, we're not all just a little guilty here. We're not the same. Not at all. I have watched over time these leaders spew filth and hate about their political opponents. I have watched talking about cutting off the president's head and vile rhetoric on trying to kill him, and they have tried to kill him twice. We have, and I've seen it towards other political opponents and other political enemies. They're very proud about the fact that they published a hit list of people they'd like to kill. And I've seen political, and no one has that I saw has condemned this. And certainly these political leaders who came out and talked about toning down the rhetoric on behalf of the Democratic Party have done nothing to criticize the political members of their party who are spewing this hate, nothing to condemn it, nothing to end it, nothing at all. People who talk about such violence, and I've done prior episodes on this, and I've done other pieces on this throughout this podcast, that if they want the rhetoric toned down, they need to start talking about stuff like this. They want the political violence to end, you need to stop spewing political violence. But right away, within hours of this poor young man's murder, his assassination, did we listen to more of this hate and this vile talk. And it continues to this day. Why are these people even allowed to continue in the Democratic Party? Why are they even allowed? Why are we not primarying them? Why are we not pushing them out of them? Why are they not being sought to be removed and censured in front of Congress? Why not? If you were serious about this and you really wanted the rhetoric toned down, you would clean your own house, but you don't. And we are not the same. And that has been proven time and time again over the last so many weeks. I have witnessed the difference between us. I have long spoke of the Marxist threat to our society and its increasingly hostile nature and how it has influenced so many, either directly, indirectly, wittingly, or unwittingly. The effect has been the same on people who have been indoctrinated into this evil ideology. You can call it woke, democratic socialism, and so on. It is all nothing more than a Marxist revolution, which is revealed in its words, in its deeds, and in its actions. I listened even to my Governor Shapiro from here in Pennsylvania, out talking and putting his spin out in a litany of double talk and completely devoid, in my opinion, of any true empathy. When we really practice empathy on this, it is hard to say that we are the same. It is hard to say that you cannot condemn the members of your party who are acting on this and then talk about empathy. The two do not reconcile. We are not the same. This party has repeatedly and continually used hate and violence to advance their political goals. We have watched this from the lies as the Russia hoax. We have watched lawfare and attempts at deplatforming on virtually every level. It was done to me. I was censored. I was silenced on several platforms before Twitter was bought out. My God, it was unbelievable. We have watched violence over and over against those of faith and conservatives in general. Frankly, anyone who just disagrees with this far-left rhetoric in a nation that is supposed to be about conversation, debate, and ideas. We have watched assassination attempts and assassinations of conservative leaders, and the lies and the rhetoric go on without condemnation from those very leaders now calling for calm. Your silence has been deafening for all the world to hear, and now you wish to whisper the sounds of the silence to your silence to justify the conduct you so clearly continue to endorse. Your hypocrisy is so blatant, it cannot bear to be in the light. Its falsehood has reached so deep it transcends sin and embodies pure evil. An evil that betrays the trust of any political office, free society as a whole, and stands as pure blasphemy before the kingdom of heaven. So I say to you now, the political leaders who came out in the Democratic Party and called for calm, get behind me, Satan, and spare us all your hypocrisy. Moving on. First, I believe there is some historical context that we kind of have to put into this Marxist thing and fascist thing, which we are being put in play here. Marxism and communism have always been used against each other and kind of foils against each other to justify their violent revolutions in society, free societies particularly. Today in this country, I'm sure there are some fringe elements that make up less than 0.5% of our political structure or society in general that claim to be fascist or try to act out some fascist fantasy. But fundamentally, there's no fascist in our political structure. It's just not part of our society as a meaningful structure. Full stop. That's all there is to it. Fascism is just a lie. In truth, the Marxist movement in our country is fighting against free society. It's just a problem with that. Coming out and fighting against free society is a losing narrative. So they simply return to calling everyone opposing them as Nazis. This kind of went on in Nazi Germany. We saw it in Spain. We've seen it in other countries during especially the early part of the 20th century, the 1900s, where people were, the Nazi movement, the communist movement, and there were other movement fractions in there too. And a lot of them, they just fought against each other, but they were really just both looking to overturn the society they were in. And they were using each other as a justification for violence. And that's all we're seeing here now. The Marxist movement doesn't have any Nazis. So they're fighting truthfully against free society. But since you don't have a Nazi, you have to create him. So you just call everyone who disagrees with you a Nazi. And we get back to that old political idea that they used in the early 20th century. And it's so absurd today. It's become almost laughable that anyone is attempting to push that out there. These two authoritarian regimes, fascism, Marxism, the idea of common, which is the segue into communism, it's the means by which you overturn a society, Marxism, and bring in a communist regime. These ideals have preyed on free society and preyed on the world for 100 years. And in truth, they're just nothing more than opposite sides of the same coin. Authoritarianism under a different name, slightly different structure, that's all. You also remember that in the course of their revolution, this Marxist revolution, as part of a Marxist idea, any antisocial or destructive conduct will do. This includes radical Islam, which is why you see radicalized Islamists following this Marxist socialist communist, if you will, ideology. Ironically, these two ideals, Marxism, communism, and radical Islam, have nothing in common. They might try to preach that. The only thing they have in common is that they hate free society and they hate America. That's it. If there was no America, they'd be killing each other. They cannot exist in the same continuum. Not at all. They have nothing in common. If you look at the ideologies in communism, you will never see radical Islam hanging out in a communist country. Not at all. And Islam would kill anything that of communism because radical Islam would kill anything of communism because it overrides their fanatic beliefs and their strong of Allah and the Quran. So and communism isn't going to really allow it. The government has to be all powerful. So, they have nothing in common, and yet here they are, right? Be very wary of an idea or a candidate or people who hail from both and are claiming both as a way forward and and talking about this because they got nothing in common. So you got to wonder what the deal is behind, what deal with the devil they made to kind of bring that together. The irony of these Marxists is that they really believe in their use of political violence, never realizing that political violence can work both ways. And I think in some ways they hope for that because, again, it makes more disruption, more upheaval, more problems. They can point their finger. See, they really are Nazis. See, they really are. They're shooting at us. It's all a lie. You know, if you're defending yourself. I mean, I have spoken on this in the past and urged caution and restraint about, pushing back too hard. We must not confuse anger with resolve, for resolve will be far more powerful in the end. Sadly, the truth remains that throughout the world and history, the principal way to end a Marxist revolution in your country is to drive it into the dirt, which usually requires violent confrontation. I don't mean that as a threat, not at all. It's not my first choice, but rather a simple historical reality. However, we are unlike others who have been challenged by such a Marxist revolution. The strength of our republic and our people stand as a formidable obstacle for such ideological violence. We are very patient people. We're very open people, and we try to let things work themselves through. But our government was designed by people who grew through revolution. We should never forget that the United States, it was a crime when we were a colony of England. It was a crime to kill a redcoat, and we did. We got very good at it. It was outright treason when we were in full revolt against the British Empire. A serious crime, and we were very good at it. And we didn't back down. We are people born of revolution, and we understood the concepts long before Karl Marx was doing his thing, whatever it was he did, wasting people's time. But I think that as a result of that, our government and the design of our government and our society through the Constitution built a very strong system and a resilient system. Divided government and strong legal precedent combined with the Constitution outlining our rights and government structure makes for a very powerful obstacle. While I believe the voting process has been impaired in the past, I also believe it is being strengthened with great resolve, thereby ensuring the people's voice can be heard. The body of the American people, what I call in the book the Great American Militia, stands strong and empowered with the cartridge box, beyond the soap box, the coin box, the jury box, the ballot box. We stand empowered with the cartridge box, and it is a formidable force and a formidable enemy, not to be trifled with in the end. And we possess a deep faith that fuels both hope and resolve in the face of such upheaval and antisocial behavior and revolution within our country, hoping to take away our rights and steal our government from us, our way of life. Through these, we have the potential and the ability to end their reign of terror through the strength of our republic. Throughout this podcast, I've very often referred to Frederick Douglass's quote, and I just talked about that a little bit, that people's rights are vested in three boxes: the ballot box, the jury box, and the cartridge box. And of course, as I've said in the past, to these many have added the soap box for the freedom of speech, and I would also say the coin box, the ability to provide money and to the government, to causes, business. Today, through the use of the ballot box and the jury box with federal and legal action, and even the soap box, we are driving this revolution out of our nation. A counter-revolution has formed and is moving forward, and I think we should be very aware of this. And having said that, we should never surrender or abdicate the power of the cartridge box to preserve our liberties. It's a powerful thought. Most people don't like to think about it. But it is an obstacle that that the enemies of our liberties do not want to face. And it is the reason they constantly press to take your weapons away from you. I'll tell you my thought on that. I don't think I want to give up my guns to the people who want to kill me. How about that? Let's be clear on something. Democratic socialism is an oxymoron. Socialism and its true persona of communism have always led to authoritarian regimes. Always. Look around you. You will never find a free society under the banner and control of communism. We must understand that Marxist movements like the one in our country have always raised the temperature, ultimately resorting to violence in the pursuit of their ambitions to destroy any given society. In short, they will not back down. They will always escalate. These people are a clear and present danger to free society and we must no longer live in denial about it. Eventually, everyone will be forced to choose how they wish to live and how they wish to proceed. But I think a lot of that has already happened. Today in our country, we are witnessing a great counter-revolution against this Marxist revolution, which has been fermenting for decades. A counter-revolution that is spreading throughout the free world. The Trump administration is not just the leader of this counter-revolution. It is its true representative. This is because the counter-revolution really lies in the hearts of most Americans. Through the ballot box, they have elected a strong leader who agrees and is acting upon the people's wishes. That's the truth. We should also never underestimate the power of faith in this counter-revolution movement. We are seeing this fight being waged from policy to reclaiming our streets. And that is a very, very powerful concept that we are pushing back on virtually every level. And the greatest piece that we have is that free society and its people founded deeply in faith, are standing up to be counted and saying, no more. Unfortunately, we must also understand that Marxism and its allies, like radical Islam, have no moral boundaries and believe that violence is justified means to their wicked ends. Despite their rhetoric and what some of their political leaders will say, their actions and their conduct and their words speak. History speaks to another reality. As this counter-revolution continues to crush this movement in our country, it will only become more violent, showing its true colors. And that, again, is based on some reasonable history. Of course, we must support our law enforcement and other officials in their fight against these enemies. And we should also be wary that, as Nietzsche said, we should be careful fighting monsters lest we become monsters. But we cannot allow the Marxists to turn us into something that we don't want to be in the name of winning. But I don't believe we've come anywhere close to that. And we can certainly shake off the concept that's being put to us about, being called names. Just forget it. It's nonsense. Nonetheless, we must stand ready to defend ourselves, our property, our values, and each other against this enemy from within and possibly the enemy from without. It is the path of my friend Bear. He and millions who eventually joined with him rose in the book. They rose above the bureaucracy and its dogma in defense of their rights against an external enemy, but also many of internal enemies. This is far more than a right given to us by our founders. It is a recognition of a right given to us by God. Our founders simply charged us to carry that mantle to defend their liberties, our liberties, the liberties of all good people. While we should never dismiss the power of prayer and the power of God's hand, we must accept that in the face of evil, God has always worked through people. And I want to take this a little further, and I talked about this in prior episodes too. I know people like to look at the revelation and they like to look at the return of Jesus Christ. And my faith looks to that too. But I also know that the teachings, the authorities of the Bible also tell us, the New Testament tells us, that only God knows when that day will be. Christ himself told us that. So we have to be ready to act. We cannot simply shake off our responsibilities to our world and to each other in hopes that Christ will bail us out, or that some other entity will bail us out, or aliens will come save us, or time warp, or whatever else you want to think. God is with us. He acts through us. But until his return, we are trusted with facing the evil that is in our world, with God's blessing and with his support. We must never forget, and I'm going to use World War II here as an example, because that was real people fighting real Nazis. The Nazi movement that was pretty much global, took on different names and entities, but it was the fascist idea, if you will. And, today we have groups like Antifa that are coming out and, I don't know, these I'm sorry, these dumbasses who, some less than beta male going, and there are women in it too, who are going out and saying, gee, Mom, I'm fighting Nazis. I'm out there fighting Nazis. You're not. You're just a moron out there hurting people or trying to. And let's not kid ourselves. I can't believe I've heard people saying to me, Antifa is not an organization. I don't know what Antifa is, says the guy from the left again. Let me tell you, telling me that Antifa is not an organized organization on some level is like saying that Al-Qaeda is like a social group. They sit around, drink tea and coffee and talk about political stuff, right? In caves. Yeah, sure thing. They have banners, they have flags, they have chapters. There is a national organization that they look to. Forget it. Come on. How far detached from reality do we have to get here? But I want to get back to this, because I think this is an incredibly powerful statement. When we face enemies like this, our faith is so important. And I talked about this in the last episode of the need for empathy and the power of empathy in marching forward. It is the founding ourselves in love that gives us this strength and the belief, the hope that Christ offers to us, and that all of the heavenly hosts offer to us as we go forward in the betterment of mankind and the defense of his kingdom in heaven and here on earth. But we should never forget, God did not send a great storm to destroy fascism in World War II. He didn't bring a cataclysm. He sent the 101st Airborne. He sent the 82nd Airborne. He sent the Big Red One, Free French forces, Canadian and British forces, and many others in Europe. He sent the 1st Marine Division and Naval Forces and all the others who fought in the Pacific Theater. With faith in their hearts, they did the impossible time and time again. Free people founded in faith in God. They became the great storm. While I believe in our people and the weight of our faith and the ability to destroy this Marxist revolution, we must never just surrender the ammo box or the will to use it when absolutely necessary. Because in the end, it is the Marxists, the radical Islamists in our midst that will make the choice for us. To those evil souls of Islam and Marxism and communism who seek this confrontation, beware. We have been killing evil in defense of our God-given rights since before this country was founded. Do not underestimate the size, the power of the great American militia, nor its willingness to kill you right down to the roots of your movement. I want to reach into a conclusion here. We must abide by our Constitution. We must abide by our faith. We must believe in our system, and in keeping, we must also give great deference to the memory of Charlie Kirk and his life's work. Make no question, it is far better that the darkness that is Marxism and communism be driven out by the light of millions of good Christians following Charlie's example. Nonetheless, let those brilliant souls know that they march forward under the watch of the Good Shepherd and his army here on earth. While I have complete faith in our current administration and the American people, I have no faith in these Marxists, their leaders, nor those cold and timid souls who follow them. While one good man can be a martyr for his people and his faith, a hateful group of Marxists will never be. Choose now, because the hour has grown late and the enormity of your crimes, the crimes of these people, has been laid to bear. There is no more denying it. I hope we find a better way, but that is not history, nor the nature of the Marxist or the radical Islamist. Nor will anyone care what we are called, for we shall all carry the mantle of patriot, like our fathers before us, if called. And I want to address, before I wrap up, on one point. And I want to speak to a lot of the young people who wrap themselves in Antifa or wrap themselves in other causes and want to follow this or are wrapped in it. Political dialogue is a good thing in our nation. And you have reason to be heard, good reason to be heard. There is a lot to talk about. I raised a son, and he's starting his life, and he's doing great things, and I'm very proud of him. But he faces great challenges, too, and challenges in many ways that I didn't have to face. And my wife and I faced many, many challenges that our parents never, ever even came close to dealing with. So there is a lot for us to talk about, much of it economic. And we're working on that, but we need to work at it, not just here in our society, but all through free society and hopefully all through the world, and find a better way forward. Because much of it is hard, and the future is not as certain as it used to be, and we can make that better. And you should be heard, but it should be rational. And it should be through open dialogue and conversation with people who want to talk to you. So do not waste yourself. Do not harm others in the name of this ridiculous hate. Do not found yourself in hate. Found yourself in love. And find others like that. And I encourage you, you will be more powerful if you do. And I will tell you that I think that we can do far more united, even if we have differences, if we talk in faith and if we talk in our common humanity. I have seen too many young people already harmed by all this, fighting for a cause, being the pawns of evil men and women who encourage them directly and indirectly to take on acts that only harm their lives. And when they do harm their lives, these great leaders are often nowhere to be found. And what's even worse is if you choose to be the fool, the tool for these radical people, you may face people who are serious, they're strong, they're well armed, and they are resolved. And if you face them in a confrontation of violence, they will kill you. They will harm you. And that is not a good thing. It may be necessary, You may make it necessary. But it is a tragedy for this world to see young people harmed that way, and particularly because it's completely unnecessary. Find a better way forward. Don't be these people's fool. So in ending, I want to put this charge to anyone watching. And I want to do it with a smile and an open heart to all of my fellow Christians and to all of those with hands raised to God. March on, Christian soldiers, and light the way. Fear no one and fear nothing. Pity these failed leaders and pray for their souls. Never forget, the Good Shepherd watches and hears your prayers, and his army both in heaven and on earth are with you. Always. Amen.